I'm Laura, and welcome to Popcore. This is artist and illustrator Tim Rogerson. Is that how you like to describe yourself, artist and illustrator? Are those two good words?
Yes, Tim Rogerson. I usually consider myself an illustrator in a fine art world because it's kind of two different worlds.
Tell us where we're at right now, because I see this beautiful background behind you.
Yeah, so this is the top floor of our house that I converted into my studio. This is where I've been for about 8 years now, and I've created hundreds and hundreds of Disney paintings up here. And what's really cool is that I can watch the fireworks outside of my window at night at the parks. So it's kind of cool. I can tell what time of day it is just by the fireworks going off.
We should say
So
you're in Orlando, right?
yes, I'm in a little town called Celebration, Florida, little town that Disney built right across the street from the theme park. So we just had Halloween, and we had about 10,000 trick-or-treaters at our front door, which is crazy every year. But yeah, it's an amazing place to live. Very
Oh, wow.
inspiring.
Wow. And speaking of Halloween, Tim worked with Popcore and Disney Fine Arts to produce a new Nightmare Before Christmas poster for AMC Theaters. So we want to hear all about that. But first, I want to ask you, if it's okay with you, I want to ask you a couple questions about yourself and just your work
Yeah,
as an artist. I know that your dad worked for Disney when you were a young man, right? When you were a
that's
boy.
correct.
So
You've done your research.
tell us when that was, and what was his job? What did that entail?
Yeah, so both my parents worked for Walt Disney World when I was very young. It's like the first 5 years of my life. My mom was a nurse at first aid, and my dad started off as best friends with Goofy, I think is the technical term for it. And then he eventually became a director, and he directed the Electrical Light Parade and a lot of the big shows in front of the castle. My dad was the director of those, and so I grew up, surrounded by Disney. A fun fact I love telling people is that Snow White was actually my babysitter as a kid, which not many people can say that. And she's now the fairy godmother all these years later. But yeah, it's kind of an amazing, magical childhood growing up, at Disney. And I think the coolest thing about my dad that had a big impact on me was his office he shared with a very famous Disney artist. His name is Don Ducky Williams, who's now a good friend of mine and fellow Disney fine artist. And he was good friends with my dad, and he taught him how to draw a lot of the main characters like Mickey and Goofy and Donald Duck. And so my dad would come home and practice, at the kitchen table. And to me, watching that was like magic, taking this blank sheet of paper, a couple lines, and then it's your favorite character. And so I watched that every day as a kid and started drawing myself alongside my dad and learning how to draw the characters and just got hooked. And I've been trying to draw that perfect Mickey, ever since, and now I've been a Disney fine artist now for 20 years and I've become kind of a young OG in a way.
So where did you go to art
Mhm.
school, and what was kind of your focus when you were in art school?
So I've always wanted to be a Disney animator ever since I saw the making of The Lion King. I think I was 10 years old when that film came out, and I saw the making of it on TV. And it's like, wow, making movies and you get to draw pictures too at the same time. That's like the perfect job for me. So I wrote a letter to Disney at 10 years old, asking for a job. And they sent me back a really nice letter from the animator of Simba, and he gave me a list of schools to go to where Disney recruits from. And the top of that list was Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. And so I already submitted a portfolio by the time I was in high school and started, my journey getting into art school, which is pretty difficult. It's a very small school, one of the top schools in the country. So it's kind of hard to get into. And so my portfolio getting into school, I drew a self-portrait every day for a whole year, my senior year in high school. So I had this huge portfolio, and that's how I got in. I had an amazing time in art school. My best friend, his name is Brett Iwan. He's the official voice of Mickey. We both wanted to work for the mouse, and he literally became the mouse after school. But yeah, a lot of amazing students I went to school with. My favorite comic book artist was one of my teachers at school. Murray Grand Prix does all the Harry Potter book illustrations, was one of our teachers, and I watched her do book 5 in class for Harry Potter. Just an amazing experience, and for 4 years. And every day you learn so much from not only the teachers but also the students. I got hired at Disney, had an internship my after my sophomore year at the art school. So I worked at the parks on the weekends, and then I would go to school during the week and did that for the remainder of my time in art school, and then started my career with Disney Fine Art right after that. And I had a job as a sketch artist. So if you go into one of the galleries back in the day and you saw an artist behind the animation desk drawing the characters, that's what I did. And it was a great job for me at that age because I was able to really learn the Disney characters and memorize, how all the characters look and their proportions, and really get your line quality, down to a T. And my favorite drawing I ever did, I drew Peter Pan for Michael Jackson.
I was actually going to ask you a little bit about the process of training that Disney puts you through because
Mhm.
there's so many characters. How and there's such uniformity and consistency always between all the Disney artists. What is the training for that?
So it's called the Disney Way, and I love that I was hired by Ralph Kent, who was a very famous Disney legend. He worked with Walt Disney himself, and Walt brought him over to Florida to help kind of develop Walt Disney World. And at the time that I met Ralph and he hired and trained me, he was the known as the keeper of the mouse. So every single drawing of every piece of artwork that had Mickey Mouse had to go through him for final approval because he had to make sure Mickey looked the same no matter where he was on the side of a Coca-Cola cup or up on a poster or a billboard. Mickey had to look the same. My first day, he made me draw 10,000 circles. It took the whole day. I thought he was joking, but he was very serious. That's the same thing that he did when he started at Disney, all those years ago with Walt. So I drew 10,000 circles my first day. I may have blisters on my fingers still from that first day. After drawing all those circles, everything just was very round, and that's kind of the Disney way of drawing is these nice round curves. And it was a lot like the Karate Kid with Mr. Miyagi, the wax on, wax off. I don't have all the characters memorized, but I can draw pretty much the main characters out of my head. So whenever I do a gallery show, I'm always asked by people to do a little dedication drawing on the back. And so I just ask, what's your favorite character? I can usually whip out a pretty good sketch right there.
What's your favorite character to draw? Do you have one?
Mine is probably Mickey. He's the first drawing I did at 3 years old. He was my favorite as a kid. My best friend in our school is the voice of Mickey. My first drawing I did so when I met Ralph Kent, he was at a signing. I went to go meet him, and he asked me to draw Mickey for him because that's how he tells a lot about an artist by the way they draw Mickey. I remember I was so nervous, my hand was shaking, and I drew. Still to this day, I think the best Mickey I've ever drawn, and that's how I got hired. So my first drawing that got me hired by Disney was Mickey. My first painting for Disney Fine Art, which is my tryout, was of Mickey. Mickey has a big part of my life. So he's a character that's kind of changed everything.
Let me talk to you a little bit about Nightmare Before Christmas. So when did you
Mhm.
first see it and what was your reaction to the film?
So I saw it in theaters. And man, I was a huge Tim Burton fan. I remember Beetlejuice and um, Edward Scissorhands and Batman. I think was the big film, and when I was really young. That first Batman
The
film.
original.
Very excited to see Nightmare Before Christmas, but I had no idea what to expect, and it just blew me away. I'd never seen claymation, stop motion like that before. It was kind of my first experience seeing stop motion. That wasn't like a TV, Christmas, 30-minute show like Rudolph, the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But to see a fully realized, Tim Burton imagination right there on screen, it really blew me away. I love the characters. I love the story of it. What such an amazing, inspiring idea to have Halloween taking over Christmas. I mean, it gets your imagination going. Even the title, The Nightmare Before Christmas, it's such a clever way to take a very famous saying for every Christmas story and turn it on its head. And I loved everything about it. And I really got into Tim Burton sketchbooks after that because I wanted to know how that film was made. And just seeing I don't know if you've ever seen Tim Burton's drawings, but they're really beautiful pen and ink drawings that really captures in a very simple way. It captures the character, and they're kind of like they're out of sorts a little bit, a little off kilter, and it's just I don't know, it's just such a cool look. And so I became obsessed drawing like Tim Burton, since high school, really. And so doing this piece for Nightmare Before Christmas now, it's kind of cool to go back to those drawings I used to do in high school, inspired by Tim Burton, and to see how that I can influence my own painting style with Tim Burton's drawing style, and just see how it all kind of comes together. Doing Nightmare Before Christmas is a dream come true. It's a very challenging IP to get to do, because Tim Burton needs to prove every single piece of art that comes through Disney with Nightmare. So it took a very long time to finally get permission from him to do a painting inspired by his film. And it started, I think, 3 years ago. They were working on a book. It's a companion book for the making of the film Nightmare Before Christmas, and they're looking for fan art. And I had done this really great, tall piece, pen and ink drawing of all the characters retelling the story, and it got into the book, and that's how Tim Burton finally saw, that piece, which is a lot like the piece that we're releasing with AMC Theatres. It's kind of a new reinterpretation of that original drawing I did, years ago. But it's so cool that Tim Burton, saw my drawing, loved it, approved it, and then I painted it in oils, and then he loved that too. And that's the piece that we're doing with AMC Theatres. It's so exciting.
And one of my favorite things about the actual poster is the fact that it glows in the dark.
And we had the idea, well, what if it glows in the dark? So I actually hand drew on its own layer where the glow in the dark would go. And it was kind of cool drawing an ink on top of all the white areas to show where the glow in the dark would be. And oh man, it looks so cool in person. It's amazing.
So, what can people expect coming up for you next in your work with Disney Fine Arts?
The next huge project we're working on is Epcot's Festival of the Arts. It's an event that starts in January and goes through February. And Disney has me there every single day. It's about a 3-minute drive for me down the street to Epcot, and I love it. I get to go outside, have this amazing location by the Epcot Ball. I have my own little studio set up out there, and I'll paint live every day for about 3 hours. I'll do these big, huge, you know, portraits of the characters, and so that's our next big thing that we're working on. And It's coming around the corner. It's like 2 months away, so I have a lot of work to do before that starts. But yeah, I'm booked up with shows for the next 2 years, so it feels good to be loved and popular and living my dream every day. And it's very surreal. I have to pinch myself sometimes. I get to do this every day.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate you sitting down with Popcore.
Yes, very nice to meet you.